Hey, so
Hello?
figured it'd be good to be doing this conversation. Um, for my audience, I guess this is me talking to my friend E about recent developments with Nintendo this year, specifically around Super Mario 3D All Stars, as well as the recent stuff with Big House and Smash Bros. Um, I think it'd be interesting to kind of see, to kind of make sense of these moves of Nintendo and kind of see if there's a story behind them. So anyway, yeah, just jumping right in. Let's talk about Super Mario 3D All Stars first. Did you get the game? I think you did, right?
Yeah, I got it digitally day one just because I love Mario and I was actually I was planning on doing a playthrough of Sunshine on Dolphin earlier last year just because I never got 120 stars. I have 118 because I gave up as a kid because I hated the blue coins. But I've like 100% in all of the games in the past, and I was like, okay, I'll just buy it just so I can have an excuse to replay all 3 of these games.
Yeah, actually, I before 3D All Stars was announced back in like March. Actually, I bought a physical copy of Super Mario Sunshine,
Oh, you
and
bought one?
yeah, and the thing is, with the pandemic, the GameCube game prices are insanely high. So I actually bought it for like $70.
Oh, you bought it for $70? Jesus.
I didn't know that 3D All Stars was going to be a thing because this is back in like March or February. It was earlier in the year. Um,
Oh, okay.
I never 100% Super Mario Sunshine. I actually never beat it. I sold it as a kid, and so I was kind of ashamed. It's a really fun game, and I figured now that I'm older and I'm better at platforming than I was as a kid, I could probably at least beat the game, if not, 100% it. Um, so I was a little pissed to hear that 3D All Stars is coming out. Like, when was it announced? It was announced kind of quietly, like in September or August, right?
It was, like, almost 2 or 3 weeks before it came out. Like, they're like, "Oh, by the way, this rumor that's been going around for the past 4 months is true."
That's right. That's right. I it wasn't August. It's definitely at the earliest September. But by that time, I'd already bought Super Mario Sunshine, and so having spent more than the price of 3D All Stars, I didn't feel like buying it. I have all the games physical copies anyway, so I feel like this collection is for people who never got to experience the games at all. Because
Yeah,
if you have physical copies, I think the fidelity of the game's not being pushed out to insanely high graphical resolutions or whatever, right? Like, um, I think there obviously are some graphical updates, but not to the extent that somebody who owns the game would benefit from, in my opinion.
yeah, I agree to an extent. Like, technically, I have all the games, I have all the systems. I could hook up my N64 if I really wanted to. I can hook up my GameCube or my Wii. But, it's just in my current setup, it's a pain in the ass to, I only right now, during the pandemic, I mostly just play games in my room because I don't wanna be in the living room around my family. I can't really go out to other places, and I only have gaming monitors, and hooking up my old systems to my current setup is a pain, so I don't really play my old games that I still want to play. So a collection like this is just really convenient for me, which is why I have
Yeah,
it.
I mean, and also just the portability, right? Like
Yeah.
playing these games on the go is something you couldn't do unless you had like one of those portable computers and you're emulating them or something, right? So
Yeah.
I do understand the appeal, but I think given the number of collections that other franchises have received, people were expecting a bit more from 3D All Stars. I don't know if you have any opinions on that or if you're like
Yeah,
satisfied.
I'm definitely satisfied is not the word. Like it's good enough. Like, yes, I have the games and I can play them. But like let's compare this to like the Crash trilogy that just came
Yeah,
out.
it's
What
like the
was like
go-to example. Yeah.
yeah, like it it completely overhauled the visuals. It added better controllers for Crash 1. It I feel like it's just a better experience and it's cheaper than this collection. It's the same game or say 3 games of like a franchise versus these 3 games, and those that collection is cheaper and is a better version of the original, while this is basically just the original. Like, the only extra stuff you get are the soundtracks, which like yay, I have a digital version of the soundtrack that I can only play while I'm in the game.
Yeah, not to speak of Silver Gunna's YouTube channel, right?
Yeah. Like, yeah, if I wanted to listen to any of these, I have tons of ways to do it. And if I wanted the soundtrack, I would want a physical like edition of it, or at least like a download so I can listen to it on my own time. Like the whole fact that I have to launch my Switch and put on a game, which will take another couple seconds to load, and then go in the menu to play a song, I'm not gonna do that. It's just a novelty to have the soundtracks. It doesn't add any value to the collection for me.
Yeah, I think Nintendo's obsessed with the Switch being like a portable music box because like there was a ad I think for Smash Bros with this like lady with the Switch like in her purse or something, and she has headphones connected to it and she's listening to the Smash soundtrack. It's like who's doing this? Who's like who, is it like
But
stylish, like a fashion statement? Like oh like
like even me, like I'm obsessed with Smash, and my favorite thing about Smash is the soundtrack. Like
right.
I have like physicals of like the Smash 4 soundtrack that came with a special edition. Like I
Oh, I didn't know
have
there was
a
a physical.
yeah, like it was like a mini CD that came with like 20 or so songs.
I
Like
know
I have
sometimes they do that. Like they did it for Melee. They did the Smash Live.
yeah, the
Yeah,
orchestrated. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that feels like a full like album. The one that came with Smash 4 was it feels like a sample CD like you
Mm.
would get with like an Atlas game or something, which is like,
There,
oh,
yeah.
that's cool.
There's so many songs in Smash 4. Or in Smash Ultimate that it's kind of hard
Yeah.
to capture the breadth of all that music. Yeah,
Like, I would happily pay 100 or so dollars for like a collection of all the music in
yeah.
Ultimate, but I know that's not gonna happen, so I'm not holding my breath for it.
I think that sort of speaks to Nintendo. Um, I don't know how to say this, but they don't know how to celebrate their franchises. You know what I mean? Like, so let's just forget the comparison to Crash, the Crash collection for a second, right? If you look at other like other classic collections of classic games, like say Sonic Mega Collection
Mhm.
or the infinite number of Mega Man collections that have been released. So when I was a kid, the Mega Man Anniversary Collection was the de facto collection. It was on all the major systems at the time:
Yeah, it
GameCube,
was the
PS2.
first 8 games, right?
Yeah, first 8 games, and I think there was a secret game, Mega Man Soccer, or no,
Okay.
the racing game. I forgot what it's called. I think it's like
Sonic R?
no, 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 for Mega Man. It's like Mega Man Rust
Oh,
and Chase or something like that. It's the
okay.
Mega Man go-karting game. I think it was on PlayStation 1. Um, oh my bad, that was with the Mega Man X Anniversary Collection.
Oh,
Um,
okay. I only have the original collection. I don't have the X collection.
yeah, but then they re-released those back, like last year, right, or 2 years ago. There's a new Mega Man collection.
Yeah.
Um, but anyway, the first Mega Man collections had artwork. They had a full-fledged interview with Keiji Inafune. Like they had a bunch of stuff that taught you the history of the franchise, right? So even if you're
Yeah.
just getting a bunch of emulated like NES games, right? You're getting more than that. You're getting a celebration of the history of the franchise, and then you compare that, and it was about the same price as 3D All Stars, right?
Yeah.
Um, whatever the cost of games were back in the PS2 era. I think that it
Yeah,
was.
I think it was 50,
I think
right?
it's 50. Yeah.
But with
Uh,
inflation, that's like $67, something like that.
Right.
So,
So here you get a collection of 8 games. I get that they're not 3D, right? But you get music, right? You get artwork, you get all these things that are what you would expect to receive as a fan getting an anniversary collection. And then you compare that to Nintendo, right? They just give you the games, they give you the soundtrack in some sort of, you know, busted like, music player that you have to listen to like while not playing the game, right? Like it's kind of like this was an afterthought. And I think that's sort of why people were kind of pissed about it. I think if Nintendo had simply done even a little bit of that stuff, even though the games weren't remade, I think people would be more forgiving. But as it is, um,
yeah, like the other collection that comes to my mind is the Street Fighter Anniversary Collection. Like, even though people have issues with like playing it online or with
yeah,
the actual like emulation of the arcade versions, at least it comes with like
those
the
features.
yeah, those features. Like it comes with like art books, it comes with soundtracks, it comes with behind the scenes kind of stuff that like, oh, I'm gonna spend a couple hours just like looking at this manual. Like it's that for that kind of person, and this collection just doesn't have anything for that kind of person. The
Yeah, and then
person who like owns these already and would be willing to drop another $60 to re-own them as a collection.
yeah, and I mean the bizarre thing is just right, it doesn't have those things. And a lot of the like so we can talk about the game, actual features, right? They're really not really any updates to the game. And obviously we don't expect content updates, but in terms of graphical overhaul, right? I think there's
Mhm.
some slight upscaling. Um
Yeah, so I think um the native resolution was up to 1080p for Sunshine and for Galaxy, and from what I was hearing back when this released, they I think 64 was 720p,
hmm,
and then 64 and Sunshine were at 30 frames per second, which is that was what it was at originally.
right. Yeah.
Like
Um
it feels basically the same. Like it well, feel is too strong a word. It looks basically the same. Like it's
right,
slightly better on a nice screen, but not
right.
good enough to be like, oh, it's like a remaster or anything. It's a port.
It's a port. Yeah, exactly. It's an emulator. Speaking of Nintendo stances on emulators, right?
Yeah.
Emulators for me, but not for you. Um, I think the other interesting thing is the exclusion of. I mean, I think they're trying to choose the most iconic 3D games, right? The 3D games
Mhm.
that launched the era, but like the exclusion of Galaxy 2 or even 3D Land. I mean, um, I guess that one's not as important, but Galaxy 2 arguably is the Galaxy series is not complete without the other half, right? Um,
Yeah, I like to be completely honest, out of all three of or all of the 3D Mario games, Galaxy 2 is my favorite. So personally, that hurts me the most because like I as much as I love Galaxy, Galaxy 2 is like the pinnacle of 3D Mario to me. And that not being in the 3D Mario collection just sucks.
yeah, I think what they were going for is this sort of iconic era defining ones, and so since Galaxy was the first quote unquote one,
Mhm.
it gets the representation for the other half. Some people are also speculating that maybe Galaxy 2 will be added in as DLC or some other something later. I mean, I don't really know how much stock I put in that. I feel like this collection is sort of like a pump and dump by Nintendo. They put it
Yeah,
out
I
there,
agree. I
and hope maybe they'll release them on an online, the online Switch online subscription. But I don't exactly know what their plans are for that because they keep basically. I mean, the games are coming out at a snail's pace. They keep re-releasing the same games across the generations, right? So with the Wii Virtual Console and the Wii U Virtual Console, we had a library of about 400 games, 500 games, right? I
something
don't.
like that.
Yeah,
It's quite a bit.
and then the Switch console is basically dwarfed, in comparison by those larger numbers. And a lot of the games that they re-released are the ones that were in the Virtual Console. I get that you get them for free now or with a subscription now, but um, the fact that we're seeing the same games released over and over again, and the Switch is several years old now. What's going to happen when we get to Switch 2 or whatever, right? Are they going to start over? Are they going to carry them over? It seems like
I doubt
they're.
they're gonna carry them over because like they had the opportunity to do it between the Wii U and the Switch and they didn't. Like and even between the Wii and the Wii U, like not everything transferred, and when things did transfer, half of it you had to pay again if you wanted to have it directly on the Wii U without having to emulate the Wii.
Yeah, I think this kind of speaks to another thing I want to talk about is Nintendo is pretty bad at preserving their history. Like, I mean, we're talking about the game not having any artwork or any other celebratory aspects of their series, their franchises. But the fact that they can't even figure out how they want to monetize their library, and I say monetize because obviously they want to make money, and I think it's a win-win, right? If they could find a way to create a permanent virtual console that people had access to, I think a lot of people will be willing to pay for that. The reason why emulation of all these Nintendo games persists is because Nintendo has done such a terrible job, frankly, of carrying their legacy and making these games available.
Yeah, like there I paid a lot for Virtual Console back in the Wii era. Like I have maybe 20, 30 games and I might even be willing to rebuy some of those just to have them on the Switch.
Right,
And like half of that collection is in the online Nintendo Online subscription service,
right.
but there's stuff that isn't there, or there's stuff that will be there, but I have to wait, and I don't want to go out of my way to wait every month and see, oh, is this game that I've been waiting to play here? Oh, it's not? Okay, I'll come back. I'm not gonna come back another month. I'm gonna be playing new stuff. I'm gonna completely forget about that. Like, literally the only reason I pay for the subscription is because I like to play Smash and Mario Kart with friends.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the primary reason people are paying for the subscription is to play multiplayer online. Um, the games were kind of an added bonus, but there is this concern of like, you know, so say that you bought this collection, the Mario 3D All Stars, right? And then they decide to release some of those games on the subscription service. It feels like you're kind of been kind of sucker punched, right? It's like, oh, I paid for these. Why is it they're now available for free? Especially considering that the 3D All Stars version doesn't really do much touch up. If they release the games in their like native resolutions, whatever, um,
Yeah.
it's not gonna be that much of a difference. So there's this really weird thing with Nintendo of getting burned. Like so, if you look at the Wii U Virtual Console right now, for example, Mario 64 is actually $10 on there. So
Hmm.
like buying the and then you look at the price of Mario 3D All Stars is $60. That means each game is roughly what like 20 each, right?
Yeah.
So by Nintendo's own like calculations, right? If you're able to buy Mario 64 on the Wii U right now today for like 9.99, the the price of 3D All Stars is actually not supposed to be $60. If one of those games is actually not $20 in that collection, right? So Nintendo is doing this weird game of kind of like valuing their library at different prices for different markets, right? And I think that's also one of the frustrations that's leading to people, doing emulators and stuff.
Yeah. It's where they had a similar issue going on. You heard about the controversy going on with Pikmin 3, right?
No.
So, when Pikmin 3 Deluxe was coming out, they actually delisted Pikmin 3 digitally from the Wii U store because
Hmm.
it's basically the same game. Like
Yeah.
Deluxe has a couple extra features, and
Right.
but it doesn't have them online. So people are like, well, if you really wanted to play this game, you
Right.
can pay way less and play it on a Wii U if you have a Wii U. But Nintendo actively went out of their way to delist it, even though the store was still up and there's still games that you can purchase on the Wii U store. So
Yep.
because of that backlash, they had to go back on that. But it's weird. Like on new hardware, they want to charge more for the
The
exact
premium.
same content. It's just a
Yeah.
premium to play it on new hardware.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like you could literally buy Mario 64, like I'm saying, for $10, right? And I think I haven't looked at the Wii U Virtual Console in a while. I still have my Wii U connected to my TV, but I don't play it. Um, was I guess Galaxy wasn't released for Virtual Console, right?
I don't believe. Oh wait, it might have been. I'm trying to remember because I currently actually don't have a physical of Galaxy. I lent it to a friend so I could play. He had 3D World, so we exchanged games, but we never switched back. And I can't remember if I ended up rebuying it digitally on the store if it existed.
So Galaxy 2, it looks like it's on the Wii U Virtual Console. Oh, obviously, because it's trying to see what the cost is.
So Galaxy 2 is there. I'm assuming Galaxy 1 is also there.
I'm assuming it would be because Galaxy 2 is so Galaxy 2 is 1999. I think the pricing like framework was um NES games are what like $5.
And then
Nintendo
Super
64
Nintendo
games
is
are
like
like
around the same.
$10,
Yeah,
and
and
then
then
Wii games are like $20. I think that's roughly what the like the pricing model was. And they're pretty universal with that pricing model because like even first party games were that price. Like seriously, Mario 64 is $10, right? So I get the feeling that if we had the 3D All Stars collection released as just separate games on the eShop, right?
well, if they followed that same pricing, it would be Mario 64 is $10 and the other two are 20 each, and that's $50 for the collection.
Yeah, it's about $50. Yeah. So I guess it's not a big deal, but it is interesting to see this sort of like back and forth with pricing over these games, especially the games that are re-releases or re-releases or whatever.
Like I don't mind them charging an extra premium for re-releasing something on new hardware for convenience. It's just if you're gonna do that, put the effort in, like make it worth upgrading to this new version. Like this this feels like it's just those games. There's nothing they added to it. So what unless you are like me and crazy and wanted it for the convenience, there's no reason to buy these. You can get all these games on older hardware that's cheaper right now for
Yeah,
less.
I mean, yeah, but by the pricing tier that they set out, it's by their own admission. Basically, these games aren't worth the price they charge for the 3D All Star Collection. Um, but I mean, I think the bigger thing is just this preservation thing, right? Like, how are we going to play, Nintendo games in their highest fidelity on new hardware if they have not only different pricing tiers but also just the different varying levels of effort that they put into re-releasing their games, right?
Yeah,
So look
like
at something like the Mario 64 fan project that came out earlier this year. I know it was shut down. I know it's illegal. It's infringement on Nintendo's copyright, but these fans were able to honestly treat this game with more love and care than Nintendo did in their official collection. And why would I, as a fan, want to buy a product that is less faithful, honestly, to the franchise than the love and care provided by fans in this fan work? Other than well, Nintendo owns the copyright and they get to decide how much effort they put out into releasing it, and that's really the only thing that they have going for them.
but I mean, like, I feel like that's not a unique situation. They do that for, like, literally everything that comes out as a fan project. Like, you can
Oh
name
yeah, no, of course.
like,
I mean, like,
almost
and I want to make it clear that I mean, this is not more for the audience, not for you, Elliot, but I want to make it clear that I'm not condoning infringing on people's copyright, right? Like, Nintendo is within their rights to enforce their copyright, right? To flex their copyright muscle, right? I'm not saying we all have to feel good about that, and we'll talk about it later, especially when it comes to Big House and Smash. Um, but the legality is there, right? But it is sort of like it's kind of bemusing to watch this because Nintendo is very clearly capable of putting out a better product, right?
yeah.
But what they're doing is they're shutting down products that are better, right? Which they legally can, and they're not kind of reflecting, going, huh? People have put effort into, honestly, a quality product. Why don't we like either incorporate some of that or maybe even, bring on those people as consultants or something. I don't exactly know, right?
Yeah.
Um, it's sort of like the saying of, if you can't beat them, join them, whatever, right? And there are cases, even, in the tech world of people absorbing competitors or absorbing, fans who've done great work and improving your own product by adding them to your team. And it's just confusing that Nintendo is not really considering it. I guess they don't have to because they can still make money off of their at the very least the nostalgia for these games, right? If not, making a better product, right? People are gonna buy Mario 3D All Stars because one, it's a limited time offer, I guess, and two, they are fond of these games, right? Even if there is a fan project that maybe a thousand or so folks or hundreds of thousands of people have heard of, right? There's still probably going to be millions of copies of 3D All Stars sold because most people probably haven't heard of this fan project, or even if they have, the only official way they could play these games is through Nintendo's inferior product.
Mm. Oh, out of curiosity, how do you feel about their whole limited, like, availability deal they're going on with?
I it feels like it's not going to happen. I don't know if I like. I wonder if it's just false advertising because it part of me just doesn't believe that there's going to be. Um, I don't know. It seems so weird. Is there like a precedent for that? Like, have they done that with other collections? Like, I know there's a Kirby collection on the Wii, right? Was that limited time too, or
So
no?
I from what I remember with the Kirby collection, I don't think they ever said anything like that, but obviously at some point they just stopped producing it and it became harder to find.
Right.
But it's like they're giving an exact date of, "Hey, we're we're not selling this anymore after this date." And
Yeah,
like
and the
I
cutoff date is really it's like barely a 6 month time frame. It's like the
Like,
weirdest thing I've ever seen. I don't know if there's like precedent for this in other companies either. Like imagine if these like I can still, find copies of your Mega Man Anniversary Collection floating around, even though it's been like 20 years since that game. Nearly 20 years since that game came out, and Capcom selling a new Mega Man collection, right? I mean, I don't exactly know what the logic was behind it, but
I
it
mean,
does.
I guess the logic is, hey, buy it now so that we can get it in our financial reports that we have these many sales now.
No, I mean, I know like that's like the obvious like reason, but the logic for like being the logic being like, are they gonna then put the games on like the online system? Like I find it weird that they would do this without preserving the game on the Switch, right? I mean, maybe it is just to get people to buy the game and they don't really care about preservation. But I mean, it's like this game will make the money beyond 6 months. There are people who will get the console, a year from now and still buy the game. So it's just bizarre that they would do this. Like it seems like this is not helping them at all.
Like, the part that confuses me the most is that it's supposed to be all editions of it. Like, if the physical was like a limited time
That
thing,
makes sense,
okay,
right? You
fine. But you could
you print the cartridge and you're done printing it. Fine, it's a limited run print, right? But the digital copy, the cost of the servers for Nintendo to have the eStore is going to be the same regardless of if one game's missing or not, right? So
yeah.
I don't yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I really don't understand why they did this. Like it seems like a dumb decision because like I get that the scarcity thing will maybe force people to kind of buy it as soon as possible, but then after the 6 months, what if there's still demand for those games, right? And they
Mhm.
could still capture that demand if they had the game available. So again, this is going to encourage people to make another. There's going to be probably another Super Mario Sunshine fan project that's going to have better graphics, and they're going to have to see and D that because these fans are able to meet demand, but they aren't. It's like they're kind of tying their own hands behind their back. Like I don't know why they're doing it.
I feel like preservation is not something that they care about. I feel like they
Yeah,
just care about bottom line now, and in the future, if there's a demand for something,
they'll do it again, right?
they'll just do it again. Yeah.
Super 3D Mario All Stars 2 or whatever. Yeah, I mean, like I guess, yeah. It's just
'Cause, I mean, they already re-released the original Mario All-Stars on Wii once. I'm sure they're willing to do it a third time or a second time for the 3D collection, or maybe even an updated version of the 3D collection, including Galaxy 2, that's another $60, and people will pay $60 for that version just because they wanna play Galaxy 2
I
on a
think at
future
some
console.
point some fans are gonna get tired of kind of because that's kind of shenanigansy. Like it's not a very good way to go about like building demand for your product. I mean, I guess in the short term it is, but in the long term, I think people are gonna kind of wise up to the game of, oh, I have to buy the same game like 5 times in order to have access to it. That's just so bizarre.
I feel like you're being too logical about this because, like, yeah, of course it makes sense. Okay, well, just stop buying Nintendo products because of the way they're treating their consumers, but there'll still be the consumers that will buy it. Like, I know people who bought 6 3DSs because they wanted the original, and then the XL, and then they wanted the special edition XL, and then they
Yeah,
wanted
I mean,
the the
but I mean hardware. And I know you're making a single point, but I mean like with hardware it makes sense. With software, with games, it doesn't make as much sense. But I guess the idea is, like you said, they're gonna re-release another 3D All Stars collection that will have Galaxy 2, and people will buy it just because they'll get access to Galaxy 2, even if it's a $60 game that has three of the games they've already played before and owned. I guess.
I mean, I'm assuming it wouldn't be on the Switch, obviously. I'm thinking like this will be like 5 10 years from now. But I mean, yeah, because they don't want to preserve what they have now, and people want to play the games, they're gonna end up doing something like that. Like
Yeah,
I can
there is probably a perverse incentive for this preservation stuff, right? If you don't preserve the games, people are forced to buy them every time they switch consoles, right? And
yeah.
I guess that's the obvious reason why Nintendo's so bad at preservation and why so many of these fan projects and emulators and ROMs thrive in the Nintendo ecosystem. It's just interesting because you look at other developers and other companies and like they've created a whole ecosystem around mods, right? So I just bought Black Mesa, right? and like
Oh, same,
that
actually.
was that's a fan mod of a game that is selling in the official store of the company that made the original game. That's insane. It's crazy, right? Um,
And
and
it has Steam Workshop support, and it also gets updated regularly and has a beta branch with um updates on a nearly monthly basis.
and Valve allows this. They're making money from it too, right? Because it's selling in their store, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so this is another interesting thing where you have, modern companies have created an ecosystem around modding and streaming, whereas Nintendo's response is sort of like it's kind of gray area-ish, right? Technically, Nintendo allows for streaming, modding not so much, right? But it's sort of like a don't ask, don't tell. If you're a small channel, like on my channel, I have a lot of fan games and mods I play with Nintendo games, and no one's come knocking at my door, right? I'm not saying I'm gonna continue or whatever, but I'm just saying, like, I think for a lot of this stuff, it's like if you're not big and you're not, making a big splash, you're not really going to draw as much attention to yourself. But Nintendo retains the right to obviously enforce their copyright wherever they see fit. But and you look at the if you look at the end user agreements for a lot of these for Nintendo's games and stuff, they don't explicitly mention streaming, right? So in theory, right, if a stream say is extremely derogatory and damaging of Nintendo's brand, and it has like a high number of viewers, in theory they could pull this copyright card and shut that person down if they wanted to. Um, so I find it interesting that a lot of other companies have integrated streaming and modding into their ecosystem, like I said, and Nintendo kind of hasn't. And I'm wondering, why that is. I mean, I know we don't have the answers here, but
Yeah.
it's I think this question maybe gets at the heart of a lot of people's disappointment with Nintendo, especially this year. You know, why are they releasing some games that are kind of lower quality than a fan mod, right? Why are they shutting down Super Smash Brothers tournament, right? In a year where there's a pandemic and no one can play Smash Brothers Melee, locally, right? Why are they doing these things, right?
Yeah, I feel like it's just like they're stuck in like an archaic way of how things are supposed to be done, and if it's not that way, they come down with the ban hammer. Even though there are plenty of examples of other developers, other hardware companies embracing this like new era of streaming, this era of modding, this era of community, and using it financially for themselves, but also letting people do what they find enjoyable.
Yeah, it's very interesting too. I mean, so I think you've seen this video. I share it all the time. It's the 2016 Pokemon Prism Let's Talk video I did.
Yeah, yeah,
And I list Toby Fox as an example of, what if Nintendo, because Toby originally made some of the aspects of Undertale were part of his Earthbound Halloween hack, right? And what if Nintendo had discovered him early on, and they adopted him, right? They're like, wow, this is a cool project. Why don't you develop games for us or something like that, right? They could have owned Undertale. It's kind of funny to see that that Fox's relationship with Sakurai now and Sans is in Smash, right? And in some way, they are still kind of benefiting from that fan synergy. But I
and
think they
he's
can
also produced music now for
for
Pokemon
Pokemon.
too.
Yeah, I know. I think we talked about that in our last video that we did roughly around the same time as last year.
Oh yeah, huh?
It was last Christmas we were talking about Pokemon Sword and Shield. But my point is, like, you could imagine a more tightly knit ecosystem that Nintendo could profit from, like the Black Mesa being on the Valve store, right? For Valve, right? Um, it's really weird to see it going this way. But when you look at Nintendo's sort of like Nintendo's behavior as a company just over time, I think it's pretty consistent. So in that video I'm talking about, I also talked about how Nintendo sued Blockbuster for renting games. And I think the argument that they used at the time was um, these games weren't being rented with the instruction manual as part of the box, right? And so, it was like I don't exactly remember the legal argument. It's been a while since I've heard it, But I think it was something like to the effect that like because our instruction manuals aren't print being like bundled with this product, and every like legal copy of our games comes with the instruction manual. Blockbuster is in violation of like selling our product in a non like legal way. Um, and I don't know if they knew that argument was going to lose or not, but like the intent obviously was to um, I think they're using their copyright for the purpose of preventing a cut into their sales, right? So if a consumer learns that by renting a game that's like I think NES games at the time were like $60 actually, or with inflation or whatever. Um, a consumer could rent a game, discover if they wanted it or not, and then not buy the game, right? Whereas before you had to buy the game, like you had to take a risk and plunge your money into that, right? So I don't know if they knew the copyright argument would kind of not be a valid way of defending that lawsuit, but I think I think it probably was employed for the express purpose of kind of saving some profit cuts. You know, if people can suddenly rent games now and discover that they didn't like it, they wouldn't be spending money with Nintendo.
I mean, I
Um,
feel like in that case, like even if they were gonna lose, the fact that they had the power to sue someone for renting games meant they could get them to not do that, in which case they would force people to buy their product, in which case they would make more money from it. Like the money they lose and the publicity against them that they have from this is probably less than how much they would make by forcing people to buy their product directly.
yes, I mean it's probably true, but I don't know that the case is that widely talked about or mentioned. I only learned about it from my video game historian. Um, So at the end of the day, I don't think anyone's sort of like using the Blockbuster case against them. I mean, but like it's just sort of like if you go back in time and you could sort of piece together if I were to piece together a story of Nintendo, you look at things like this, they set a precedent for a company that's very, very conservative when it comes to how they engage with emerging technologies and you know technologies that benefit the consumers, is so to speak, right?
Yeah.
Streaming benefits consumers, right? Streaming is a way of consumers learning about games that they like the games or just enjoying the product, in a sort of a secondhand way, right? And Nintendo at the very beginning of streaming and YouTube videos and stuff, they were against that. It was early on that was kind of taboo, right? Until they created the Nintendo, like partners program for people who were doing streaming and stuff. I forget exactly what it's called, but
I forget the exact name, but that program no longer exists.
yeah, I
So
know they kind of eased it out. But back in 2015, 14 stuff, like you had to kind of to be in their good graces, had to be part of that program, and
yeah,
they took a cut of your revenue, your earnings from ads and stuff.
yeah, there were two cuts. I forget exactly how the program was, how it works, because I was thinking about being part of it because at the time I was thinking of producing game content and it was all going to be Nintendo based.
Yeah.
But I think one version was like about 30% of your ad revenue would be going to Nintendo.
Oh yikes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people were actually discouraged from streaming Nintendo games because of that. Um, it's like a very, very, and again, the question of whether or not Nintendo can do that is moot because they can legally, like they can enforce the copyright in any way they see fit, right?
Mhm.
Um, but the question then becomes, like why what makes Nintendo so special when all these other companies aren't doing that and they're finding ways to make money off of streaming, make money off of modding and stuff like that, right? Like,
Mm.
is Nintendo a good company, right? And in terms of the product, obviously, like we're talking about these games because we love them, right?
Yeah.
But like when I can, as a YouTuber, decide to like stream other developers' games and not be penalized for it, right? Why wouldn't I do that, right? Why wouldn't I move on? Um, and so it's sort of interesting to just kind of figure out, like it looks like Nintendo hasn't really changed, right? I cited the Blockbuster example. I cited the the Nintendo streaming partners program, right? And I think a lot of these things that are emerging today, especially the Smash Big House thing, is reflective of Nintendo leveraging copyright to protect their brand. And obviously, like maybe there is some monetary component to this, right? Like um, the big house as running an operation to host a tournament, they have to raise funds, and so they're using these copies of Smash Bros. Melee, these quote unquote edited modded copies of Smash Bros. Melee to um to to generate revenue in order to run their functions, right?
Yeah.
So I think the argument would be that they're profiting off of Smash Brothers. I think the money obviously is peanuts in comparison. But I think the big thing that Nintendo cares about is their brand, right? If you think of them as sort of like a Disney-esque company, I mean, they effectively are the Disney of Japan. Um, if they were to go all in on supporting the Smash Brothers scene, right, their brand would be tethered to this community. And this year we had the you know the accusations and revelations of the Smash community being toxic, right? Like
Yeah.
imagine if Nintendo were deeply embedded in this community and those scandals broke, right? They would tarnish their child friendly brand. Um, and so for them, it is a risk to be associated with, and I'm not saying a risk because the Smash community is especially toxic, right? I mean, in terms of gaming communities, I mean, I don't necessarily think that Smash is even like, well, I don't know. I guess this year, I guess we learned that that is true, right? But
But
the
I mean,
same,
it could be any
it could be
community.
any gaming community, right? There could be a bunch of the same thing could be happening in the Tekken or Street Fighter scene. I don't know, right? The thing is, we don't know. Um, but the point is, it's a risk for Nintendo to be associated with any particular offshoot community because um, that's their brand is going to be tethered to that, right? They're going to
Yeah.
see a rise with the um, the level of appeal that community has, right? And so in some ways, it's a very smart decision to keep any community at arm's length because especially for Nintendo, because they are a company that wants to control how their brand appears, right? Going back to that video I always talk about, I mentioned Bowser's Teacup um, in Wreck-It Ralph. Reportedly, um, Nintendo spoke with the animators at Wreck-It Ralph at length about how Bowser should drink tea because they really cared about how Bowser was portrayed, even though drinking tea is not something that Bowser is known for, right? And so you think about the level of control that involves for one scene for one character, and then think about these fan projects, these fan communities where their intellectual property and their brand characters likeness and their worlds are being used in all sorts of ways that they can't control. I mean that must make them nervous or it might infuriate them, right? So I could see them wanting to definitely not get involved with their fans if their fans are going to be creating these ROMs or these mods, especially if they're going to go out and then run a tournament using them, right? Like the
See
copyright
my. Oh, go ahead. No, finish.
copyright argument actually might just be like a proximate cause of the issue. The real issue might be just the unauthorized use of their brand, period, because they are a family friendly company that likes to appear neutral, and apolitical and all sorts of things, right? And
Yeah.
when you have fans running around, running tournaments and running events with your characters and stuff, you can't control, what they're gonna do and what they're gonna say.
My the only thing about that is like they they could just stay completely hands off, but they could also just embrace the community and just keep the control that they want. Like they could do something like how Sega has the Sage program where they have like fan games and they're celebrated, but there's like actually a format. There's like control from Sega to some extent. It's not just a free for all.
Yeah, Sage actually is a pretty good example. I mean, Sega's a pretty good example too. Sega having adopted people who've made fan games to become part of their development process, right? And
Yeah.
releasing one of the highest, like received Sonic games in years. Um, so that is a very interesting alternative. I think Nintendo has done some of that with like their there are tournaments that are officially sponsored, and I actually think Big House was an official Nintendo partner, and
Yeah,
some
there was
people
a partner.
are saying, yeah, they're saying that the Big House got the ban hammer because they had such a close relationship with Nintendo, and they don't want their official partner doing something like that.
Yeah, but,
Um,
like, the Nintendo partnered events, like, that really just means, okay, Nintendo has given you the okay to do this event,
yeah, yeah, I know.
and
Well,
you run their ads, and they
it's
won't give you any money. They might give you, like, a hookup to get monitors or consoles or stuff, but they are basically not providing much value other than that.
no, no, no. I know. But I'm just saying, like, so if you think about it, sort of like in phases, right? The current status quo for tournaments and events is kind of like the status quo for streaming back in what 2014, 13, where it's like, oh, you're a Nintendo YouTube partner or whatever. You can stream our content, but you have to give us a 30% cut of your revenue, and like so. Um,
Yeah, it's basically the same thing, except instead of them taking the ad revenue, it's this they get to pick the ad.
Yeah, no, I mean, I know. I'm just saying, like, there is an option, I guess, for quote unquote sanctioned Nintendo tournaments, right? It's
Mhm.
a shitty option. Like, I'm not even I definitely agree with you. But I don't think that's going to change if Nintendo is protective of its image in this way, right? I think strategically it just makes sense for Nintendo to be at arm's length in this way because again, like they can't control the elements of these other communities, um, and they don't want to kind of live or die by the scandals or whatever that emerges from these communities. And I don't really know I don't know what the middle ground would be here exactly, like in terms of evaluating Nintendo's self interest, like what would make them feel okay doing that, and I can't really provide a definitive answer on that.
Well, from what I've been hearing from the Smash community as a whole for the past week has been they would just prefer to Nintendo to just not be involved at all at this point because after the years of them coming down on tournaments, them coming down on mods, them coming down on games, they would rather just have no involvement, no support, and just be able to do whatever they want.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see that happening because Nintendo's gonna wanna enforce how it's the likeness of its characters are being used and whatnot,
Yeah,
like, because they are the Disney of gaming, right? They wanna be a family-friendly company, and if they have a community of unofficial, like, licensees or not licensees, but unofficial usage of their products, they're gonna be implicated in whatever that community does, and so I think that's their concern. That's, like, their
yeah,
primary concern. The secondary concern might be, like, the copyright enforcement and stuff like that, but I think the copyright enforcement is sort of like the proximate cause of the issue here. I think they are
yeah.
really primarily concerned about their image and their brand.
And I
Um,
really feel like money is not even at all a concern
money
for them.
I don't think I mean, like, cause like the amount of time it's gonna take to shut down every single fan game on the internet and stuff, it's so time consuming. I don't really think it's all the money, and I'm pretty sure they know that these projects don't make any money, right? Or
Yeah,
if they do make money, it's like peanuts, right? But I do think they care a lot about how their brands are portrayed and all these unofficial usage of their characters and their IP, is using their characters' likeness and stuff. I don't think they like that. Just like they want Bowser's teacup to be a certain size and they want Bowser to sip tea in a certain way, right? I think they want to have control over, how their characters and how their company is perceived. And they can't do that, like I'm saying, with all these mods and all these tournaments running around.
yeah. That's why, like, I agree, like, I feel like Nintendo should do something like Sage or, like, get involved with their community to the extent that Sega or even Capcom to sometimes, like, you
Right.
remember the Mega Man fan
Oh,
game and stuff, like,
yeah.
I want them to, like
Not Capcom versus Street Fighter, Mega Man versus Street Fighter, right?
yeah, the Mega Man versus Street Fighter, like, I want them to embrace their community instead of keeping them at arm's length. Because like, what they're doing now is like, "Oh, we're not gonna support you, but if you do anything we don't like, we're gonna kill whatever you're doing." So,
Yeah,
it's just in a
no,
lose-lose situation.
obviously, it's like, it's a very much so like a draconian response. right? I mean, I agree. I think the best thing that we could do as fans is to talk about this and to point out, like, hey, Nintendo, other companies have embraced their fans and their fans' projects without losing money, right? And again, I don't even think it's about loss of money. I think it's more about controlling of the brand. But like, you can embrace fan content and still have a say on how what happens, right? You're talking about Sage. I talked about Black Mesa, right? Like it's doable, right? It's doable. It can literally be a win-win-win, right? For nearly everybody involved. If you just if you learn how to embrace these things and you build a infrastructure around them, right? I mean, as things are now, obviously, like there's no control. But if they had a formally like sanctioned program for these tournaments that was reasonable, right? Like I think they could have the amount of control they wanted, and people be like, oh, okay, at least now there's clear rules around what we can and cannot do, right? So they in some ways are shooting themselves in the foot. And so one of the things I've started saying more recently is like like, especially with the Smash community, it seems like we have a lot of talented people in this community. People who are spending hours modding, creating new content for these games that are years old, right? I mean, I'm like, I think somebody should, if there's a secret millionaire or billionaire in the Smash community, somebody should bankroll some of these developers and just make another game, make another franchise, right? And for the kicker, maybe even like sell the franchise to some other competitor of Nintendo, like Sony, right? Imagine if the guys behind PM or I know Sippy was just one guy, but like imagine that they all got together and we hired a bunch of other developers to build a real game that's like a competitive fighting game that's like Smash but isn't Smash, doesn't use Nintendo's assets or code or likeness, and you sell it to Sony or something, and you get a real esports like scene around that, right? Imagine how Nintendo would feel if you were to do something like that. I know it's easier said than done, but I'm saying like instead of spending hours on Nintendo fan projects, make your own games and compete with Nintendo, right? Like let's leave, like let's step away from being Nintendo fans and let's just become fans of good games, right? And
See,
build scenes around those games. I know it's not easy. I'm not saying like this is easier said than done, but I'm saying if really Nintendo's gonna give all these projects a boot, right? Like and not leverage that energy of these people are creating content for free and in most cases these games are and these mods are very faithful to what Nintendo's created, like extremely faithful. I would understand if everyone was making like shitty Newgrounds games that were like edgy for no reason, like edgy Mario, like some shitty ass like Newgrounds like animation or something like that. But these projects are very lovingly created and like they rival or in some cases exceed the content that Nintendo's created. And it's insane. Like I would if I were Nintendo, I would harvest this. I'm not saying you exploit people, but you these people deserve to be working at Nintendo.
the only problem with people making their own games is the power of the IP is so strong. Like, yeah, there are games like Smash. Like you could have there's Rivals, there's Slap City, there's other stuff that specifically takes elements from like Smash games and they're platform fighters, right?
Mhm.
But they don't have the IP strength. They don't have Mario in them, so not enough people
Oh,
care.
I mean, like, I'm not saying it's at all easy, and I don't even think it's gonna be necessarily be successful, but I'm just saying, like, like, I do think the strength of Smash here is the community, right? And
Yeah.
and I can see, right, and I think it's a coordination problem, right? It's just a lot of people in the community, a lot of different interests in some ways, right? But I can see if the top Smash streamers put their weight behind whatever game that these developers in the Smash community decide to create, if they put their weight behind it, and if the game was really, really good and it had the aspects of Melee that people love so much, I could see it becoming not necessarily a contender to Smash. So that's kind of crazy, but I could see it. I could see if Nintendo lost these top streamers, if they stopped talking about Smash altogether, and they were talking about some game that was like Smash but more competitive and on a different platform. I think Nintendo would notice that, and I don't think it would have to be the most successful platform fighter ever.
I
I just
mean,
think
well, do you remember Icon's Battle Arena?
no. I've
Okay.
never heard of
So
that.
let's see, it was like 3-ish, 4 years ago. So there was a platform fighter made by Wave Dash Games that specifically had Melee as its main influence for how it was made. There
Right.
were they had, um, Smash players, a lot of them Melee players working on the game as like testers. They had people from the community working on like the back end. It it had I don't know how many millions, but there was a there was funding for it. Looked like it was going to they were aiming for it to be exactly the kind of game you're talking about. Like it it is a Smash game, but it has its own characters. They were going for I think they were going for a free to play model,
Mm, okay.
and it crashed and burned. Like it's kind of having a revival right now because one of the um people who funded it bought back the rights, and he's like making his own game right now using the original assets. But
Right.
like people have tried doing this. There are Smash games that are trying to do that exact same thing, and they're trying to get people in the Smash community to be behind it, and none of them are really rallying behind it. Like you haven't even heard of this game, right?
No, I've never heard. I thought you were just saying random series of letters or words. um, that kind of sucks. I mean, I think though, I think once people have been burned enough by Nintendo, and it sounds like this is one of the final straws. You know, it's plausible that one of these projects could take off. I mean, if enough people are pissed off, they know that they're not welcome in the Smash community. They're like, hey, why don't I make my own community? Why waste my time and energy with a game with a franchise that shows me the love? You know, if we can create something new. I mean, I don't. Again, if this is all easier said than done, right? Like, I don't think that like you're gonna get a Smash Brothers killer, right? But I do see a world in which if enough of the top Smash players are around this other game and they're not talking about Smash Bros anymore, I think Nintendo's gonna notice that. To what extent that they'll care, I don't exactly know, but like having because Nintendo actually does interact with the top Smash streamers. They do, right? Like they've
Mhm.
had Hungrybox, they talked to him before, right? Like I think having this ecosystem disappear overnight might be kind of surprising. I think that
It
might be enough of
might.
a sign. Yeah, yeah. I mean, whether or not they do a 180 and they're like, oh, let's have a actual like you know tournament partner program that is not draconian and not backwards, right? I don't know if they're going to do all that, right? But I
See,
think they would notice like
I was just gonna say, like, I was watching Leffen talking about this because he's been one of those like top melee Smash in general players that they've invited to events, like, and like a lot of the people they invite have were hoping like Ultimate would be the point where they're like, okay, they're saying things like they want to support the community. Okay, we'll show up for this. We'll play your games. We'll support. We just want you guys to support us. And these past 2 years have been the same as every other year.
right. They want a two-way street. They want a relationship. It's exactly yeah. I don't know if you saw the Hungry Box video I sent you.
Oh, I'd watched it like a couple hours before you sent it.
Uh, you're more in the community than I am. Yeah, I mean, like, if those allegations are true, I mean, it sounds like they were trying to eat their cake and have it too, right? They're
They are probably true. Before the video had come out, I had been on Twitter. I'd
yeah,
been seeing people responding. I've been seeing lots of different sources corroborating a lot of that
oh
information.
man,
It looks
nasty. It looks bad.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think they just wanted to. I guess for those of you who don't know, there have been a few threads that have come out recently involved, like regarding one the death of PM, and two the extent to which Nintendo has been discouraging at least behind the scenes, discouraging the esports scene, right? Just denying like multiple partnerships, kind of writing up contracts with companies, and then sort of not providing the resources to fulfill what would be needed to make these tournaments happen. Um, eh,
Denying other companies the ability to make their own circuits because they have their own circuit they're supposed to be running, and then they back out of that too, so this nothing happens.
right? Yeah. I mean, again, like you could argue. I mean, legally, Nintendo can do whatever the hell they want with their IP, right? But from a PR perspective, this is terrible. It's like they don't want this to be esport. It's what it sounds like. What they want is they want Leffen and Hungrybox to show up to their events to legitimize the game and have all that free advertising. But they don't really necessarily want an independent community that is sort of doing its own thing, and probably for the reasons that I suggested. Maybe there's some other reason, right? I don't really think the copyright again is the big issue. I think it's mostly their brand that they care about here. Especially when these tournaments would have been sponsored by legitimate companies, right? And like it would have elevated Smash to the level of any other competitive fighting game. I mean, like you don't see Capcom worrying about their competitive Street Fighter scene in the way that Nintendo is kind of thinking about their Smash scene, I guess. Like it's just it is a very bizarre thing. I guess bizarre is the kind of name of the game. We've been saying that for a while about Nintendo's actions here with regards to the 3D All Stars, with regards to this emulation, fan projects, whatever. And I guess it just goes back to them being a conservative company, not wanting people to rent games in the '90s, right?
Yeah, and not wanting people to mod Brawl in the 2010s, and not wanting people to play Melee on
Online.
Dolphin.
Right.
Like,
Oh yeah. Well, I some people are saying so. I don't know if you saw the video I sent you last night. There's a channel called Hoag Law. They do virtual
oh,
legality.
oh, did you? Okay, so I didn't see that yet. I was recommended to watch the Hoag Law video, but I hadn't found it yet. But I didn't realize you sent it to me. Okay, so
Yeah.
I'll check that later.
I mean the TLDR is basically um legality of emulators is ambiguous, but it's most likely not the emulator that's illegal. It's likely um the distribution of the games that are illegal, right? Because the actual like IP, right, the characters, the likeness, the worlds, whatever, it's all in the video games, right?
Yeah, because like I feel like emulators are completely legal, and the actual ISOs of the games are fine. Like you can back up your games, no problem. It's it's distrib. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Distributing it is the dubious part. But interestingly enough, distribution also counts towards streaming as well, right? Which is why back in the early 2010s, we saw Nintendo freaking out about streaming, right? Like
mhm,
that is like an unauthorized way of sharing the likeness of the characters and the assets in the game with other audiences. Now, most companies wised up and actually created an ecosystem around streaming, but in terms of copyright, infringement and stuff, if a company wanted to enforce its copyright in that way, they could claim that streaming is an unauthorized distribution method for their games, for their software. So, um, like until until Nintendo X out exceptions for this in their terms of service and stuff, we're gonna have a company that can reserve the right to do this. I, like and what the whole blog video actually pointed out too. This is interesting. Even though Nintendo has some blog posts and some content around streaming and how to stream and stuff like that, uh, Hoag Law like actually read their in user license agreement and which doesn't explicitly spell out streaming at all. So in theory, if Nintendo wanted to, like I think I gave an example, kind of an external example closer to the beginning of our conversation, saying that there is a streamer who is saying disparaging things about Nintendo over stream, and they're a very popular streamer. Nintendo could probably pull a copyright card and say, "Hey, we don't want you doing this." That's not something that Hoaglog said, but he gave an example. Back in the day, there was someone streaming FIFA, and they started saying crappy things about EA on their streams, and EA pulled the plug, right? So in theory, Nintendo could do the same because there's no legal document that enshrines the protection of streaming as something that you could do with their software. And some newer developers are starting to do that. So like you could in theory have a case where the developers of a game are totally comfortable and happy with you streaming, but there's technically no legal protection in the end user license agreement. And maybe some head honcho at the company doesn't like it, and they could probably pursue. They could bring down the ban hammer. All right, so the whole log video made a very strong point about like fans pushing companies to make sure that those activities aren't written as exclusions explicitly in the end user's license agreement, which is a good point. Um, of course, like we're not even at that stage for Nintendo, right? We're still trying to mind read exactly why it is that they don't like these newer forms of media.
I mean, I feel like the biggest issue here is we are trying to mind read because they don't communicate. They don't
Yeah,
tell
yeah,
us what we can or cannot do. Like the Big House has been around for 10 years now, right? Yeah,
right.
this is 10, right? Yeah. So it's been around for 10 years. They've had a relationship with Nintendo. They've been doing the new Smash game and Melee for like
Mhm,
ever, right?
yeah.
But why is this time not okay? Is it because it's on Dolphin? Is it because Slippy? Is it because like but Nintendo won't actually say to the community why we can't play the game, and we all think it's dumb that they're saying that, but we don't even know exactly why anything is done anyway. Like there are no lines drawn. There's no boundaries.
Yeah, I mean, I think the expectation is that they find the defense of their copyright a satisfactory explanation. Um, and it's true, right? They can claim damages from this if they wanted to. I mean, like we've been saying back and forth, the extent to which these damages are extensive is kind of questionable, right?
Yeah.
And the other thing too is there are tons of other companies that have ecosystems around um, capturing value from mods and fan projects and stuff like that, right? So yeah, it's kind of weird. I mean, for me, I know I'm mind reading, but I think it goes back to this wanting to protect their brand in as strong a
Yeah.
way as possible. But maybe, I mean, maybe they are afraid of losing money to mod. I mean, I don't really. I mean, these audiences are so small that I can't imagine
Yeah.
people playing Project Slippy. Probably a lot of them probably haven't even bought Smash Ultimate. And they probably never will. And they'll probably play it at a friend's house or something. But I
I mean,
don't
I
think.
feel like everyone involved, at least in the Big House, like they own all of this already.
Oh
Like
yeah, sure.
they're not
Yeah,
losing a single dime of like I own 4 copies of Melee. They're right behind me. I own a GameCube, 2 Wiis, but I would rather play Slippy
Smash
just because
online. Yeah,
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 because
yeah.
A, it's online, B, it looks better, C, I can run it on my 144 hertz monitor.
Yeah, no, I mean, I understand. I mean, like, and this is, I mean, going back to Mario 3D All Stars, right? Nintendo has a very impressive library of games. Like, and that's an understatement, right? These games are classic. These games are timeless. They're like the definition of value, you know, for gamers, right? Like these are
Mm.
great franchises. These are great games, right? But they don't want to preserve them. They want to re-release them forever as cheaply as possible while
Oh,
charging.
cheaply to produce is possible.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, as cheaply right, as cheaply made as possible, as cheaply produced as possible, while charging, I guess like as high as they can, as high as they can get away with, right? The going
Mm,
price for any game, right?
mm.
Even though by their own pricing admission, right, like these games aren't worth its cost, right? Why is Mario 64 $10 on the Wii U shop, right? And then going back to the Pigment thing, we could see that what they were trying to do. I mean, they definitely realize the value of their library, but I think it's about kind of releasing it on their own terms, right? And they realize the value of the brand, but they want to control the brand, on their own terms. Which obviously, like again, like, I am not saying that Nintendo can't do this legally, right? But just in terms of if, if you're wondering why consumers are not happy with Nintendo this year, I think these two examples are probably go-to examples of everything that is kind of conservative and kind of maybe backwards about Nintendo, right? I can buy a mod of Half Life One in a legal store, and Valve has found a way to monetize fan work and fan projects, right? Sega has as well, right? We can go down a list of fighting games whose publishers are behind their fighting game scenes. It's just bizarre that Nintendo is not there yet in 2020.
Yeah. I don't I don't understand. Like I like look at like something like Guilty Gear Plus R, right?
Yeah,
So Guilty Gear the most recent version of Guilty Gear XX, which is the previous version of Guilty Gear but for XR. Let's like it's from like 10 years ago, right? So
yeah,
people have been modding that to give it GGPO netcode so that people can play it online with better netcode because it came out
years
forever
ago.
ago.
Yep.
It's terrible, right?
Hmm.
And so a company, I'm not gonna name names because stuff is going on over there, but a company was going to be a liaison between Arc System Works and these fan modders to allow the game to have that netcode. So now we have a version of Plus R that is in beta and is coming out that has better netcode so we can play it online. And that's
Wow.
because the company worked with the fans to put in a better online experience for the consumer. And I don't understand why Nintendo can't just allow stuff like that to happen. Why are they so against this? Like I get that they want to protect their brand, but if they work with them, they can have the control that they want and make the consumers happy.
Yeah, I mean, it's very much so, like, this could be a win-win situation for everybody. I mean, or at least for most people. I'm sure that there are mods that maybe Nintendo would never ever approve, even if they did a 180. But I think most people could be satisfied with the efforts that fans are frankly producing for free. Um, so I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if we're getting to the bottom of it. um,
I mean, I've been hoping for a change in Nintendo for 10 years now at this point, and I haven't seen any steps towards any decisions that would make the consumer happy. But hey,
yeah,
maybe
I suppose it might be worth doing a deep dive into Nintendo's history. I mean, not here or now, right? I don't have the knowledge or the bandwidth to do that. But I mean, if you look at how these other companies are structured, like Valve's a newer company. Um, I know Capcom's an older company, but maybe for some of these things that Capcom's more amenable to, the developers have more say or something. Because it seems like in Nintendo, the developers don't really have a ton of say. Um, there's like a business side, and then there's the developers, right? Like
yeah.
I've heard Sakurai kind of have not like not like difficulties or beef with the business people, but like it does seem like they aren't in sync about everything. Um, so I don't exactly know.
Now I'm just sad.
Yeah, I mean, you can still play these fan projects. I mean, it's just
Sure.
obviously the legality is gray, but I mean for
Yeah,
individuals, I don't- and
personally, I've been playing P plus in protest.
I'm not personally condoning the uses of mods or emulators for anybody listening to this. For the 20 of you who are going to listen to this, but they are an option for those of you who want a quote unquote better experience. Um, I cannot begin to tell you the amount of fun I had, in the past playing some of these Pokemon mods and stuff. Um, and just a lot of these ROM hacks and stuff, they're so fun. They capture the feeling I had playing some of these franchises for the first time, right? With some of the Nintendo's newer games, that I don't get that feeling. I guess Ultimate came very close to producing that because just because the sheer size of the roster and the stages and music. Um, but like Smash 4, no, not really, right? Like
Yeah,
playing Smash Bros. 64 for the first time is nearly an experience that has not been replicated by any official legal product. Let me just say that. Which it's kind of sad, but it's true. And the same is true for Pokemon and all the other franchises. Oh,
true.
not Zelda. I guess Breath of the Wild actually is good. One exception.
One exception.
I was so inspired by it. I wrote a video essay about it.
That's very good.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully. Yeah. I mean, I don't have any like detailed advice for fans, but I think the more outreach we make about this, maybe the more Nintendo will realize that they're going about it the wrong way.
Yeah,
And
I'm hoping that all the videos and the tweets and the posts gets their attention because like I remember it was a couple days ago, like Save Smash or Free Melee. One of the two hashtags was like number one trending in the world. Like,
yeah, I saw it on Twitter. Yeah.
yeah,
I'm
like
I'm
people
not
are
really
mad.
Yeah, I'm not really a part of the Smash community. I've not been in tournaments, but like, I mean, that makes me happy as a Nintendo fan who really values the core of the product, right? The value proposition that Nintendo provides. I think these fan projects, embody that, and I'm happy to see fans stand up for that. Um, the only other thing I can say is, hey, if this doesn't work, we've got some talent in these communities. Make your own franchises. I know it's hard. I know you mentioned that other game that I don't remember the name of it. What was it? The project that failed?
It was Icons Battle Arena, I think. Here, I can look it up. I was like a backer, so I have a copy, and I also have an alpha of the new thing. Let's see.
Yeah, guys, just make your own versions of these games. I mean, that should get their attention if they are successful. I think it's gonna be a moonshot, but it only takes one of these things to be successful, right? And if there's a scene around it, um, that would make it all the more you know impressive. So uh, hopefully hopefully that can happen if Nintendo keeps acting this way. I don't know.
So, was there anything else you wanted to talk about?
No, I think that's it. And there's not much we could say. We're kind of going hitting the same points.
The only other thing I wanted to bring up earlier was did you hear about any of the updates to the Mario 3D collection that came out, the 1.1 update?
Yeah, I saw some of like the GameCube controller support. I mean, for me, those are things that should have been in the game from the get go.
Yeah,
And the fact that you're playing in an emulator means that the experience is still kind of not as good as it could be. Like I think I'm gonna stick to playing 64 and and Sunshine and Galaxy on their native hardware because I have all the games. So
fair. Like I'm probably well, I will play Sunshine now on the Switch just because um some of the graphical glitches from emulation got fixed.
oh
And
okay,
what and widescreen like I appreciate widescreen support um I you can't really get that on original hardware for Sunshine. Like I could emulate it on Dolphin, but setting that up might be a little bit of a pain. Like it's nice to just pop in my Switch
yeah,
and
if it weren't for the
play it.
pandemic, I probably would be more amenable to getting 3D All Stars because like I would be probably going out more and playing it on the go is
I mean,
that
like
is
I said,
a valuable thing. I'm not going to downplay it, but it
but yeah, I would not suggest anyone to like if you already have the games. There's no need. There's nothing in that collection that warrants you needing to buy it. Like, I really appreciate the GameCube support and the ability to finally change the camera controls so it actually feels like the game I grew up with. But
weird.
like you said, it should have been like that from the beginning.
Like yeah, and I think only because people complained about it that they did that. Because there's no reason why a game that is just three ports needs updates, right? Like if you make the conscious decision to port the games as they are roughly, right? There's some small changes here and there in terms of graphical fidelity, widescreen support. Um, the fact that there's an update is kind of weird, but okay. It's just an
Yeah,
acknowledgement that the porting was kind of slipshod, kind of lazy.
yeah.
I guess.
Like,
Oh, what were you gonna say?
oh no, nothing, nothing.
I guess like final thoughts for you. Like, where do you hope Nintendo goes from here? And is there anything you're looking forward to from Nintendo? I guess in the coming year.
To be honest, I don't believe they're gonna embrace their community and do anything like I've seen from Capcom or Sega or Valve. The best we can hope for is if they just leave the community alone and pretend this stuff is not going on, but I know that's not gonna fly because they care too much about their IP.
Yeah, I will say the good thing is that they were going to shut down Evo, right? Smash at Evo in 2013.
Yeah.
The good thing is, I think with the fan outrage, with the eyes being on the fans and what Nintendo does, they can't outright just shut these things down, right? They wanted to shut down streaming, right? Originally, if you had a monetized Nintendo video on YouTube, I think you were in the sniping, you're in their sniping sites. So like the fact that that we made these things an integral part of being a gamer, right? Streaming is integral to gaming. Tournaments are integral to gaming, right? Nintendo can't just outright shut these things down, right? So I don't think we're ever going to see a world where like every tournament is banned, right? But we are going to probably for a long time live in this really weird uh, middle ground, of gray area kind of world where like Nintendo will shut down some tournaments, but they won't be explicit about why, right? In some cases, maybe it will be the copyright thing, right? But there could probably be some other motivations that are underlying that decision that we will never be privy to. Um, but
Yeah, I'm
I'm hopeful that with the fans, you know, having this kind of reaction and explaining to Nintendo, that there are other companies that are able to make full on ecosystems with fan projects and mods and tournaments. I think they'll get the message, even if they are this conservative company that in the '90s tried to sue customers for or sue a company that allowed customers to rent games. I mean, like,
yeah,
I think they'll get the message eventually, right? Especially if we keep talking about it.
maybe. We'll
Maybe.
see. I have a feeling what's probably gonna end up happening is more events are either going to not want to do partnered sponsorships with Nintendo,
That much is
or
already guaranteed, sadly. But
yeah, or they will partner with Nintendo, and then those events will be very different than everything else.
that's true. Yeah. I guess the cynical take here is that none of us are Nintendo's target audience, and they don't care as long as like 5-year-olds are still playing their games, right? Um, but I would argue that these retro fans are probably they're not the most important audience for Nintendo, but like the fact that these people are becoming parents and stuff. I think Nintendo's value is in this nostalgia, right? And if they alienate some of those people who are nostalgic for Nintendo products, I think they do lose something, and I'm hopeful that they'll realize that too.
Yeah.
But it's hard to say, right? We're not close to Nintendo as a company. I don't even know necessarily the structure that informs the decision making structure around Nintendo, right? I don't know who it is making these decisions. If is it legal? Is it the business owners? Um, I've heard bits and pieces of varying things. Like, I believe somebody had uh, either a recording or a like a transcribe of a discussion between Iwata and someone at a Nintendo business meeting where they were talking about fan projects and stuff.
Hmm.
And the reaction there wasn't overtly negative. So I will probably, if I can find that, link that into the description, and we can you can read it in the audience. Those of you listening to this can read that. Um, so if what I'm saying, if I remember it correctly, if that's true, we're not going to see. Well, I think the Big House ban is going to be as worse as it gets. I mean, that is pretty bad, right? But I don't think that Nintendo's going to go out then and hunt every single project, right? So my advice for us is just to hunker down, right? Try and be low key about these things if you really want to do them, you know, to avoid the gaze of Nintendo, and keep pressuring. If one of these things do happen again, keep pressuring Nintendo to remind them that they're not making the right decision. And I don't know when the change will happen, but I think it eventually will happen, right? Like every other gaming companies embrace these things, so uh, hopefully Nintendo will get the message and do the same.
Hopefully.